Alexander Lack Drummond, known affectionately as Sandy, was born on August 13th, 1957 to parents Alexander Leslie Drummond and Euphemia Effie Roger Braid in Fife, Scotland. He was described by those who knew him as loving, friendly and carefree, but also intelligent, quiet and dependable. He had good faith, but could be shy, according to his mother. He wasn't a loner, but kept himself to himself. Sandy was inquisitive about the world, and had various interests, including nature, wildlife, and astronomy. He loved the countryside, and often went for runs and rides on his motorcycle. By the summer of 1991, Sandy was 33 years old and living in a cottage with his brother James in Boar Hills, Fife. The cottage itself sat in an isolated spot on the main coast road between St Andrews and Crail. Sandy was working at a local paper mill, Guardbridge, near Lookers, and had been for the previous 7 years after returning from serving in the Black Watch Infantry in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. At the time, Sandy and his family were caring for his elderly father, who was suffering from dementia. But it was during this period that family and friends noticed a shift in Sandy's demeanour. He no longer appeared interested in his hobbies and became somewhat withdrawn, contemplative and worrisome. His loved ones even cited that Drummond had become somewhat erratic in his behaviour. Euphemia believed her son was perhaps having some sort of issues at work, as he had recently been transferred to another department and allegedly was not particularly happy about it. On June 20th of 1991, 4 days before his death, Sandy abruptly handed in his resignation at work, telling his boss that he would not work his notice period. He did not tell his parents that he had quit, but told his brother a few days later that he had left his job with plans to spend a week away on his motorbike. He visited his mother that night, failing to mention his resignation, and returned home on his motorcycle, the journey between both houses being a mile or so. On Sunday, June 23rd, 1991, Sandy visited his parents' house once again, kissing his mother goodbye. Little did she know this would be the last time she would see her son alive. He was due to return the following day for dinner. However, rather unusually, the 33-year-old failed to show and had not contacted his parents or his brother to say that he would be late. On the morning of June 24th, after his brother James had left for work at approximately 7:25 a.m, witnesses saw Sandy hurriedly leaving his cottage with a blue sports holdall in his possession, running across the road and through a field. CCTV footage in St Andrews captured Sandy at an ATM at approximately 11 a.m, withdrawing almost the entirety of his savings, totalling around £850, which he placed into the holdall bag. He had also withdrawn money the previous day from another bank account. At around 4 p.m, a witness saw a man matching Sandy's description out jogging in the locality, and at 5 p.m, another saw a rusted red or orange Morris Marina vehicle parked outside the Drummond cottage. According to some reports, the vehicle had been seen multiple times in the weeks and months leading up to Sandy's death. However, the car nor the driver has ever been identified. Another witness allegedly saw the ex-soldier at around 7 p.m. in the Boar Hills area. Less than an hour later, Sandy was dead. At around 8 p.m, an elderly walker discovered his body bruised on a farm track a few hundred yards away from his cottage, lying face down on the grass with his arms underneath him, as if he had grasped his stomach prior to death, and his legs were straight. Police were called and arrived shortly afterwards to conduct their inquiries. Many couldn't fathom authorities' first conclusion, being that Sandy had died naturally. Police found no obvious marks or any immediate indication as to his cause of death being that of foul play, therefore did not cordon the scene off. However, the post-mortem examination made a startling conclusion. Sandy Drummond had been murdered by a, quote, jiu-jitsu-style strike to the neck, which resulted in fatal artery damage, causing blood to abruptly stop flowing to the brain, resulting in acute asphyxiation. Sandy had suffocated to death, though it would have been a very quick death. Due to the crime scene not being securely cordoned off, a significant failing by the police, any evidence which could have helped identify Sandy's killer would have been easily contaminated or lost. Police Scotland did not publicly address Sandy's murder for months after they initially concluded his death was suspicious without further comment. Investigators were left baffled as to why someone would murder Sandy, as he had no known enemies and was, by all accounts, a kind individual. Police did question his colleagues at the paper mill after Euphemia voiced her concerns about her son's change in behaviour following his departmental transfer. However, nothing of significance came from these inquiries. Door-to-door inquiries were also conducted around the Boar Hills area. However, unfortunately, no motive for the crime could be established. At first, Police Scotland believed Sandy to be the victim of a robbery. However, it was later found that all of the money he had withdrawn in the days leading up to his murder was all accounted for in the cottage. It's unclear why he had withdrawn this money. The blue sports bag that he was seen with that morning, however, has never been found, and it's unclear what the contents of the hold-all was. A young man who boarded a bus from near Fallside Farm to St Andrews was seen with a bloodied handkerchief over his hand on the day of the murder, and police looked to speak to him. However, the man was seen earlier in the afternoon at around 2:30 p.m. when Sandy was still alive. Therefore, it was deemed unlikely that the two incidents were related. It's unknown whether the young man in question was ever identified. Police questioned Euphemia on several occasions regarding her son's behaviour prior to his death, and she told investigators that on one occasion, Sandy sat by the fire and broke down in tears. When she asked him what was wrong, he said he couldn't say because, quote, "it's too filthy." What Sandy was referring to remains a mystery, though several family members believed that perhaps bullying or blackmail was involved, possibly in regards to his workplace, though there is no evidence to suggest that this was the case. Investigators dug deeply into Sandy's background, exploring all avenues of his life in order to find out what his secret was, but couldn't find anything. One investigator claimed Drummond was, quote, as clean as the Archangel Gabriel. Euphemia Drummond was understandably critical of the investigation and was of the belief that Fife police did not conduct a thorough enough investigation into her son's death. She frequently contacted authorities for updates and wrote to various MPs in order to obtain a fatal accident inquiry, which was eventually granted and conducted in Cooper in September of 1992. The pathologist at the inquiry was critical of the police for not initially noticing signs at the scene that Sandy had been a victim of homicide and condemned their failures to secure the crime scene properly. Fife police, however, spoke of the difficulties of collecting evidence outdoors in an uncontrolled environment. Sadly, the inquiry concluded without any solid findings. They could not determine an explanation as to why Sandy had died. Fife police gave the case files to other detectives in order to view the case from a fresh set of eyes. However, despite this, no new leads were ever established. Over the years, various appeals were launched, including on BBC's Crime Watch, where a reconstruction of Sandy's final known movements was aired across the UK. But sadly, once again, these efforts failed to yield any results. Sadly, Sandy's mother, Effie, passed away in 1996. She carried the hope of finding answers to her grave, but unfortunately passed away without ever knowing the truth as to what happened to her son and why. His brother, James, told the media that his mother's steadfast pursuit of justice likely contributed to her demise. In 2016, Police Scotland revealed that a cold case review was underway, citing their hopes on the advances of forensic technology would help solve the case. According to claims made by an investigative journalist, a suspect was identified during this time, quote, a serious suspect. However, they had passed away by the time police were reviewing the murder. Therefore, the case was met with yet another dead end. Police did not confirm or deny that a suspect had been identified. However, they did say that the case is under ongoing review. Unfortunately, 33 years later, despite numerous appeals being launched by investigators, the murder of Sandy Drummond remains unsolved. The case leaves many more questions than answers, such as why did Sandy quit work so suddenly and withdraw most of his savings in the days leading up to his death? And what happened to the blue holdall he was seen with, running from the cottage and through some fields? What did the bag contain? What was the, quote, filthy secret he was holding so closely to his chest? And ultimately, who was responsible for murdering Sandy Drummond and why?